I had a conversation recently with somebody younger, and we got into one of those discussions about some of the many conspiracy theories that try to explain why the world is headed in the wrong direction. You see, the problem with these theories is that they oversimplify the explanation with semi-plausible truths that make them believable in some way. It's so satisfying when you can neatly package very complex and abstract realities into an alternative one that makes them easy to accept. Most of what you hear is that the elites and billionaires are colluding to control us and even destroy us so that they can own everything. We hear specific examples about Bill Gates and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and even Donald Trump, and the Rothschilds. And honestly, I understand why people think this way. Because if somebody caused all of this, then we know how to fix it, right? If billionaires caused it, get rid of the billionaires. Politicians caused it, elect different politicians. If elites caused it, expose them. Simple, clean, and emotionally satisfying. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think that this water world has us all programmed to make independent decisions based on a collective narrative that moves humanity as a whole. Simply put, everyone is doing what they feel is best based upon their own worldview. Because when I look at people with power, I don't see cartoon villains sitting around plotting how to control humanity. I see people doing exactly what everyone else is doing. They're trying to solve problems, trying to win, to gather resources, to avoid losing, trying to build something. The only difference is that when normal people make mistakes, 10 people perhaps can feel it. When powerful people make a mistake, millions and even more might. Take something simple, for example, food. 8 billion people need to eat a certain amount of calories every day to keep living. That's not politics, that's arithmetic. So with an expanding world population, resources must naturally keep pace. So people start proposing solutions, different food, different farming, different incentives, and perhaps even different systems. And immediately someone says, see, they're trying to control us. Well, maybe. Or maybe they're looking at the numbers and seeing something unpleasant. Or maybe they are just solely focused on profit. Or perhaps both, for that matter. But it is what the world incentivizes. It is the current narrative, which is solve problems and get rich if you want to be successful. And don't we all want to be successful? Something else occurs to me. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Maybe the question isn't, why do people in power shape society and tend to make it worse? Maybe the question is, how could they not? Think about it. What would the alternative actually look like? Let's say tomorrow, everybody woke up. Not spiritually, not politically, actually woke up. They questioned everything. They questioned religion, work, and government. They questioned consumption itself, success, and identity. They even asked if they ever wanted the things they spent their whole life chasing. At first, that sounds amazing. Freedom, individual thought, people finding themselves. But then what? Because if everybody decides for themselves what matters, it becomes extremely difficult to control outcomes and enforce compliance toward a unified societal goal. Moreover, how do you even establish a unified goal? And when people stop agreeing, they stop organizing. And when they stop organizing, they stop building. The result isn't utopia. We go backwards. Society breaks apart and you begin to go tribal again. You trust the people closest to you. You reject larger systems. And you reject outsiders. You reject shared sacrifice. And then somebody eventually figures out that if you want to build roads, cities, hospitals, economies, armies, space programs, or civilizations at all, People need to buy into something bigger than themselves. Religion did it. Kings have done it. Countries, of course, did it. Education, business, culture does it. All of these create narratives and stories organize people. Now, for all you conspiracy theorists, you hear that and immediately think that we are being manipulated. Well, maybe. But ask yourself why we have always allowed it. The point is that civilization itself requires these narratives to zombify compliant subjects to act outside of themselves. Because if everybody pursued only their own peace, their own truth, their own fulfillment, who builds anything? Now comes the thought that is really uncomfortable to examine. Maybe the real force shaping the world isn't the conscious collusion of a select few. Maybe it's the unconscious, willing, and compliant collusion of billions of people all doing what they have been conditioned to believe is right. Not because somebody forced them, not because they're stupid, but because every civilization teaches people what to value long before they learn to question it. And if enough people believe the same things, well, history moves. And if that's true, then something else starts to bother me. Because if civilization actually depends on billions of people buying into these narratives, then who buys in the hardest? The young people do. And before anyone gets offended, I don't mean that as an insult. I don't think young people are less intelligent. I think they're exactly what they're supposed to be. Because when you're young, you're not trying to maintain. You're trying to become. You're building identity, building relationships, building security and status, a future. You're trying to answer the question, who am I? And civilization absolutely depends on that energy. You need people willing to work insane hours, take risks, start businesses, go to war, move across country and have children. Sacrifice today because tomorrow is going to be worth it. And that's not new. We've always done this. Everybody tells young people some version of the same story. Keep going, keep building, keep becoming. And most people don't question it. Not because they're weak, because they're busy living. And honestly, maybe that's exactly what they're supposed to do. Because if everybody at 25 started asking the kinds of questions people ask at 60, economies would slow, birth rates would collapse, consumption would collapse. People wouldn't care about what others thought or keeping up with the Joneses. They would want less, perform less for others, and compete less. Maybe civilization itself would start losing momentum. And here's the weird part if you carry this logic forward. I don't even think society fears that. I think society expects that eventually most people naturally start stepping back. Not everybody, but enough. And maybe that's where the next part gets really uncomfortable. Because if civilization depends on younger people buying into fairy tales, what happens when people stop buying? And I think most of us already know the answer. We call it getting older. People joke about it. Older people stop chasing promotions. They stop trying to impress strangers. Stop buying things they don't need. Stop caring what everybody thinks. People say they become cynical or burned out, lazy even. Maybe. But again, maybe something else is happening. Maybe they finally realize the game never actually ends. Nobody comes to your house at 55 and says, "Congratulations, you contributed enough. You won. You may now relax." That moment never comes. there's always another level, another title, another purchase, another goal, another thing to optimize, another expectation. And eventually some people look around and think, wait, what am I still doing? I've already done this several times and I don't feel any better. I worked, I built, I contributed, I raised kids, I paid taxes, I sacrificed. Why am I acting like somebody is still grading me? And maybe that's the moment some people quietly step back, not from life, but from striving. Not because they failed, because they stopped needing as much. They desire less approval, less status, less identity from work, less proving their worth over and over again. And here's the part I keep coming back to. I don't think society fears this. In fact, it expects it. Because while one group slowly stops running, another group starts. And the machine keeps moving. And if that's true, then I don't actually want everybody to wake up. Now, I know that sounds horrible. Hear me out. Because I realize this channel broadly speaks to everyone to refocus their mind inward, away from these fairy tales. But the reality is not that everyone will listen, especially the younger crowd. I know this because of my conversations with my 19-year-old twins and their friends. And I get it. Because I was 19 once. But the more I think about it, these fairy tales are the fuel to keep the machinery of modern society humming so the rest of us don't starve to death. Because what would actually happen if everyone did start to internalize the world instead of getting it spoon-fed to them? Well, people would stop believing and stop caring. They would stop competing or wanting status and would start to be satisfied with less. They would stop trying to become somebody, stop buying things to impress, and stop chasing success, whatever that even means. Most importantly, they would stop believing that happiness can be found in the future rather than the present moment. When all this happens, do we become enlightened? Maybe. Or maybe people also stop building, stop risking, stop sacrificing, and stop committing. Maybe civilization slows down. And that's uncomfortable because nobody wants to admit it. But I enjoy living in civilization. I like electricity. I like hospitals. Well, not really. I like food showing up at my grocery stores. I like roads and technology. I like the fact that millions of people wake up every morning and do things I don't want to do.
I'm not the talented one in my family.
You got it. Now's your chance to go
To prove.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I benefit from that. You benefit from that. Everybody watching this benefits from that. So maybe the uncomfortable truth isn't that civilization turns people into zombies. Maybe civilization depends on enough people continuing to believe, continuing to chase and to strive, not because they're stupid, because that's what keeps the whole thing moving forward. And here's the part that feels selfish. I don't really want out. I just don't want to run as hard anymore. I don't want my entire identity wrapped around becoming something else. I finally know I have always been enough. To illustrate this in a true Waterworld metaphor, I want to stand close enough to the river to benefit from it without throwing my whole body into the current. And maybe that's more nihilism than wisdom, but whatever it is, it seems to come with age and experience. And if you can accept the premise, peace follows and conspiracy theories lose their charm. And maybe that's really the point. It would be detrimental to us all if everyone woke up at the same time. It would destroy the machine that propels humanity forward. So rejecting society is not the answer. People must have reasons to build and to contribute and to fall in love, to marry, have kids, start businesses, and work too hard. Life will do what life always does, and people will learn from it, suffer from it, and naturally slow down with time. And eventually most people will arrive at their own version of this conclusion. Or they won't, and that's okay too. So if you're younger and you're watching this, don't listen to me. Go live. Go chase. Go build. Go become whatever version of yourself you need to become. You may find meaning. You may find disappointment. Probably both. And if you're older, maybe stop asking whether you did enough. Maybe stop acting like somebody is keeping score. Stop trying to become somebody else. Maybe look around and realize this whole time you already belonged. You already contributed. You were always enough. And maybe the goal was never to escape this water world. Maybe the goal was simply to stop drowning in it. I'll see you next time.